Previously in F1, Carlos Sainz tampered with the Red Bull garage by unscrewing all the light bulbs halfway, putting the batteries in the wrong way in the TV remote, and now they're shit. In Q2, Max is knocked out by the rookie Arvin Lindblad, and as a result is now being chained up like King Kong in the back of the garage by yachts. Both of the Red Bulls were outqualified by the junior team, an Audi and an Alpine. Kimi Antonelli got a tow in Q3 which gave him pole position for the race on Sunday, but not before the FIA fascists deleted his onboard footage from his pole lap around 1:30R to hide the amount of speed lost and the awful noise of the super clipping. Do you know who else deleted footage? That's right, Richard Nixon. In 1971, Nixon had a sound-activated taping system installed in the Oval Office, and when he was subpoenaed for the tapes, it was discovered that 18.5 minutes had been erased from them. And who did Nixon lose to in the 1960 election? JFK, who, as we know, was killed by Christian Horner working with the CIA. Fittingly, the cast of the new Mario movie were at the race. Chris Prick had taken a break from clubbing gay people to death and helping the FIA with measurements to join an interview, where he was late because he got confused by Jack Black's last name and felt a bit uncomfortable. So after the FIA finished measuring people's skulls, the race began. The lights went out and both Mercedes had shit starts. Oscar gets from third into first before the first corner, and Charles is up into second and Lando into third, with Kimi down in sixth. On lap 2 he gets past Hamilton before turn 1 and is now up into P5. On lap 3 Hadjar and Verstappen get close, but Isaac decides he doesn't want his head crushed like a watermelon by Yoss, so backs out of it, which then gives Ocon the opportunity to pass him. George gets past Lando before the S's and then past Charles on lap 4 and now is on the hunt for Piastri. By lap 8 he was right up Oscar's arsehole, and at turn 16 slings it down the inside and tells Oscar he's glad his people were sent to Australia as prisoners. Oscar wasn't having any of it. He took one last hit of his bong, simply drove past George and called him a Tory fuck. Lap 11 Kimi does the same move as George but on Lando before the chicane and now is into P4. He does the same thing again 4 laps later on Chocolate Eclair, then very nearly shit himself on the exit, allowing Charles to get past. Lap 17 Lando pits and Oscar 1 lap later, and on lap 22 George pits, comes out 5th behind Oscar who's now up to P4. As this happens, Oliver Bearman had clattered into the barriers at Spoon with a 50G impact. What caused this massive crash? Because these new regulations are shite, Colapinto was having to harvest more energy for his battery, which meant he was going much slower than the car behind, which was Ollie. And as Ollie comes around turn 12, he has so much more speed compared to Colapinto, he had no choice but to avoid him, or else the Englishman would be once again invading the Falkland Islands. This forces him off the track, losing control and smashing into the barriers. The crash was neither of their faults, but was another attempted murder for the FIA, which will be heard about at The Hague in years to come. Luckily he was okay, but the impact was so big that the gear lever went up his arse and was seen limping out of the car. This brought out the safety car, which for Kimi was perfect, but for Osama he was furious, and said it was very inconsiderate of Ollie to crash after he had just pitted and would not be helping with the ground invasion. Lap 27 the race resumes. Kimi gets a good start, but George has used up all of his battery charging his vape, and Hamilton gets past him. Again, George is fuming. For someone that spent the first 2 races talking about how great the new regulations are, he spent this whole race bitching about how awful the new regulations are. On lap 37, George again had battery problems, and now Charles drives past him. Lap 42, Charles and Hamilton at turn 16 get close, but Hamilton stays ahead. Then at turn 1 says, "Mamma mia, here we go again," and goes around Hamilton. The next lap Osama does the same thing and now into 4. Lap 48, Lando gets past Hamilton at the same turn 16 spot, and on the straight into turn 1, Hamilton gets past him again. Again on lap 51 before turn 16, George goes on the inside and past Charles for 3rd. But Charles doesn't fret and says, "Don't even think about it, latte boy," and throws it around the outside of turn 1, and Hamilton does the same to Lando. Next lap, Lando does the same old turn 16 maneuver on Hamilton, and then Kimi wins with a 14.5 second gap to Oscar in P2. Both Isaac and Max finish behind the Alpine of Pierre Gasly, which opened up a riff in the fabric of reality where everything is upside down. George Russell is now George Bush. Kimi Antonelli joined SEAL Team 6. Charles became a prostitute on the corner of Prague. Lewis won Abu Dhabi 2021 and started a cult. Valtteri Bottas shaved his head and started a rock band and was found hanging on the back of a door with an orange in his mouth. And Lance Stroll is still a disgrace because some things never change.